What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today I'm going to be comparing Keone Pearson and Ramon Dino. So, why am I doing this? Well, I thought it would be a very interesting comparison for two reasons. The first one is very subjective. I just like their physiques. Keone has always been one of my favorite physiques. I think he looks so aesthetic. I love his vacuum and so on. He is very thickly developed, also super aesthetic and a great poser. But Ramon, on the other hand, he is more of a newcomer, but that doesn't mean he looks any worse. He's got a super amazing aesthetic physique. He's got a great structure. He's also got a great vacuum, and his development is very complete, and I love his shape. So I thought it would be great to make a comparison. And the second reason is I think they share some similarities. I think they both have that vacuum, as I mentioned. They both have great arms, and overall, even the legs look similar, in my opinion. Sometimes, in some poses, you are probably going to notice the quads look kind of like clones. So these guys are quite similar, even though Keone is a little bit shorter than Ramon. And there might be another reason. I would also love to see how these two guys will stack up next to each other, since Keone is going to be back in classic physique and Ramon's definitely not gonna just leave it. I mean, he's just started competing. So these two are definitely gonna meet somewhere. Might be on this year's Olympia stage. We're gonna see. But anyway, this is sort of a preview for me and you, so let's get into it. The versions we're gonna be using for the video for Keone is the 2019 Olympia version, the classic physique version, of course, and for Ramon, this past 2022 Arnold classic version, his best up to date in my opinion. So let's get into it, starting off with the front relaxed pose. Not the best footage for this one, but it will be better throughout the comparison. And I'm not gonna be scoring these guys. I actually tried to, but it was way too hard to choose. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts, and you can you can have your own thoughts about this comparison. I just compiled it for you. So let's take a look at this front relaxed. I think Keone is more thickly built, but Ramon has a better structure, it looks like, in this pose. Even though I think Keone has definitely hit this pose better on other occasions, he doesn't look the best in this photo. I would still prefer Ramon probably in this pose. He just looks better, mainly in the lower body. And it looks like the symmetry round, so in the side relaxed pose, I think Ramon's glutes look better than Keone's, but the whole lower body probably might look better for Keone because of those quads. And in the upper body, they both look decent, but Keone's doing a better job executing the pose. So I would lean towards him, maybe, because Ramon's chest is definitely thicker from this angle that he's hitting the pose in. So it's very close so far. Here, in preparation for the front double biceps, you can see the similarities in their quads. I think they have a very similar shape to them. But the lower body, it's probably better on Keone, despite him having much higher calves. So it's kind of even between these two guys. And Keone doesn't have the best midsection, but I still think he looks better in this pose thanks to those arms. I think they're overall a little bit bigger than Ramon's arms, and definitely peakier, which shows in this pose, but they both look good. In the front double biceps, this is the first proper pose, and we can see clearly They both have such an amazing shape and an amazing structure, and they really look similar in this pose. That's what I was talking about. In the lower body, in this pose, I think it's very hard to decide because the quads are a little bit better on Keone, I would say, but Ramon's got the calves, so it's hard to choose. Keone's waist might be a little bit tighter, and his vacuum is sort of more sucked in, more pronounced. But Ramon's torso also looks amazing. That being said, I would definitely give this pose to Keone because his arms look a little better than Ramon's arms, and his lats pop out a little more. I just love his shape in this front double biceps. But Ramon, he looks incredible as well. In preparation for the side chest pose, it's not the exact same pose, but let's look at it. They both look great in it anyway because they have great arms. The lower body, we can't really judge here, but in the arm, I would give the edge to Keone just because I think he has better arms overall. And the triceps horseshoe looks pretty decent in this one. His chest looked great. Too bad I didn't get a picture of Ramon hitting the pose the same way Keone is here because he definitely is in a better stage of the pose to be judged. Ramon, we can't really see a whole lot in this one, but they both look good once again. So let's move on to the side chest. Here, this is a pose where they don't really look that similar. They don't hit it in a similar fashion. I prefer probably Keone because they both have a great chest, but Keone's look sort of thicker on a smaller frame. His arms definitely look much better. His triceps, biceps, significantly better than Ramon's. Their midsections look great. Their lower bodies look great too. Keone's hamstrings are better. Maybe even his calves from the side looks better. But Ramon's got great quad mass, and they both present themselves so good. Ramon's execution reminds me more so of the golden era than Keone's, who's got a more modern execution, but not even Ramon's is that Arnold way of hitting the post with the chest propped up. It's just sort of unique. I really like both these executions. In this sort of Christmas tree pose, we can see that Ramon's Christmas tree is much better than Keone's, and he's got absolutely peeled glutes. Keone's hamstrings, I think, look slightly better, but Ramon's aren't bad either, and he's got great calves, much better than Keone's calves, for sure. Significantly larger and lower insertions too. Definitely better genetics in that part of his body than on Keone Pearson. In the back, Keone doesn't look that great here. I'm not sure the picture was snapped in the right moment, but this pose would definitely go to Ramon if we were to judge it. His back looks pretty good here, if you ask me. And this is gonna be a better pose to judge. The back double biceps, they both look amazing, I think. Once again, the lower body, I would probably overall give it to Ramon, but Keone's hamstrings look great. Ramon's lower part of the back looks amazing, and his traps look amazing too. Keone's lats are definitely better and much wider, and he has a great V-taper, but Ramon also has a great X-frame. That being said, the arms are better on Keone, and the delts too. So these guys both look great in good condition and have an amazing shape, but their strengths, weaknesses sort of cancel themselves out. So if I were a judge, I would have real trouble picking the winner in this pose because overall, I prefer Ramon But in the arms, I prefer Keone, and I think the arms and delts are a pretty significant part of the rear double biceps pose, so I might even give it to Keone here. But Ramon looks absolutely amazing. Here in the ab and thigh, the side variation, they don't look that similar, but they once again, neither one of them really looks significantly better than the other one. That being said, I would probably have to side with Keone in this pose. Their midsections look comparable, so their midsections definitely look good, but they're not amazing. I would give it to Keone more so because of the quad, because Ramon is displaying a good quad, but Keone's got his trademark feathering, which I really love on his quads. I think they look super aesthetic. I think it looks great in this side variation of the ab and thigh. But once again, notice the calves on Ramon. That's a distinct advantage he's got against Keone. So he does, of course, have something on Keone, who's probably got a little bit bigger biceps, for instance. This is the classic pose they would both hit, and they look kind of similar. Ramon's execution is a little less standard than Keone's. They both look great doing that. I think their execution of both of them is very good. Ramon looks a little bit more artistic, maybe. He has got his own way of executing, and he's not messing it up. He looks great. The lower body here, I would say it's more of a posing thing than a development thing, as we saw in the previous poses. Their lower bodies are similar, but I would go with Keone for the lower body. His quads look amazing. He's also got the vacuum once again. He has great shape in his upper body, and his arm looks amazing, better than Ramon's arm. And their torsos, both of them look awesome in the torso. I really love their vacuums, both of them. So in this pose, Ramon looks sort of more more imposing, maybe even because he looks slightly bigger. Of course, his stature would be bigger, but I would go with Keone. I like his build here a little bit more. And here, this is a reasonably similar, so comparable back pose. I like Ramon's execution of the pose more, but I mean, it's not even the same pose, so this is really not a good way to judge this pose based on the way they are executing it. Let's look at, for example, the arms. And I think Ramon fares significantly better than in the other poses when it comes to the arm. He is, I would say, even matching Keone here because of the way he's holding it. He looks really good through the back. So does Keone. But Ramon just has a more got lower body here in this pose because Keone's not flexing it properly. But overall, I think this pose would definitely go to Ramon. Look at his hamstring. It looks absolutely dried out. And I honestly love this pose from him. So high praise to the guy. And here we have a crucifix pose for both of them. And they do appear a little similar in this pose. Keone's arms once again look better than Ramon's, but mainly we're talking the biceps because other than that, Ramon's got great forearms. His triceps ain't look bad whatsoever. Through the torso, it's the same thing. I just prefer Keone because his lats seem to flare out a little bit wider. The waist is very tight. The vacuum is super pronounced, so I prefer him to Ramon through the torso, although Ramon has got amazing ab definition even through the vacuum. The lower body, once again, like two copies of each other in the pose, except for the fact that Ramon's calves insert significantly better and lower than Keone's. But overall, this would go to Keone if you ask me. He has the superior shape in this pose. When we're talking classic physique, we have to look at that. But at the same time, it's all subjective, so you might prefer Ramon. I think his arms, his biceps would need to be a little bit bigger in order for me personally to give him this pose over Keone Pearson. Here in this kneeling front double biceps pose, they both look great. But I just want to point out Keone's right quad suddenly looks enormous, and Ramon isn't doing as great of a job displaying his quad, so definitely Keone's got the advantage there. Although it's honestly it's so massive, it's kind of throwing off his flow, but I don't think that's a problem here. His lats are much wider than Ramon's lats, mainly because of the way he's executing the pose, but that's part of it, right? And his vacuum, once again, I love his vacuum. Definitely one of the best in the classic physique division, I would say. And even in the 212, he had a great vacuum, of course. And his arms are unbeatable. So I don't think Ramon has much on Keone in this pose. Maybe he's just hitting it wrong in that one moment that this photo was taken. But I don't think so. I think Keone would still take this pose. They both, though, resemble some of the great physiques of the 70s, of the 90s here. Definitely great classic physique competitors, both of them. And we have this mantis pose as well. We have Keone kneeling, we have Ramon standing, but either way, they are quite comparable. But it's the same thing once again. Look at Keone's biceps and look at his near arm. It just looks slightly bigger than Ramon's arm, and I think his delt looks a little bigger too. That being said, Ramon hits this pose to spec. He looks amazing hitting it. His lower body looks great. So maybe if Keone were to stand up, he wouldn't show as much definition, and Ramon could take him in this pose. Because on his own, he looks like aesthetic perfection. While Keone, he doesn't honestly look that mind blowing. So I think they look comparable once again in this pose. You can't say one of them is definitely obviously beating the other one. That being said, I would like to share my winner for this comparison, even though I wasn't really giving any points. Overall, I would say this guy, Keone Pearson, would take the win because I think it was mainly because of the arms and because of the lat taper, which was consistently better than Ramon's arms and lat taper in most of the poses. And Ramon definitely beat him in some poses, and he can definitely make improvements. I'm not sure he's younger than Keone. They're both very young competitors still, but he doesn't need to be younger than Keone in order to make more improvements, right? So I think if he can add some more muscle to his arms, potentially to his back also, and if he can work on his execution just a little bit in some poses, he doesn't really need it, in my opinion. He hits them well, and he has improved since the Olympia in his posing. But he could be definitely a threat to even the champion Chris Bumstead, which Keone never really was. He never placed second at the Olympia, and I think Ramon has quite high chances right now of doing that. So guys, please share your opinion on who would win this matchup in the comment section below, and tell me why you like Keone or why you like Ramon more, what you prefer about their physiques, and whether you think that the points I made in this video were correct and justified, or I am just saying something that you don't agree with. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love the physiques of both of these guys, so for me, just looking at the pictures would be really fun. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some Keone Pearson or Ramon Dino videos, and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.